We are going down the west side of the Highlands. The landscape changes dramatically. The mountains give way to enormous valleys covered in conifers and pine trees, more like the forests of the Mediterranean and not these equatorial regions of Oceania. We are going to see the mummies of the Enga or Kukukuku. That is the name normally given to these people who live on the plains of the Sepik River. High up in the mountains where there is no vegetation, in a natural shelter which the natives call the Sacred Rock, the Enga mummies stand silently watching over the lives of the Kukukuku. Cannibalism has always been common practice among the Kukukuku, and it is this that has made them legendary. They ate thieves and prisoners of war after fattening them up. Charles Higginson was the first white man to come in contact with them in 1907. He described them as fierce cannibalistic warriors, always ready to start a war with a neighboring tribe. Leaders and warriors who died in battle were mummified. The body was placed in the fetal position in the kitchen and a fire was lit to smoke it. When it began to smell, the wives would rip the skin off and tear out the intestines, which were eaten by the closest relatives in order to acquire the qualities of the deceased. Then they continued smoking the body for 4 or 5 months until the flesh was totally dried out. It would then be taken up to the Sacred Rock and placed in a sitting position, looking into the distance, or in a type of bamboo basket which they nailed to the ground. Other tribes left them hanging from the trees. Very few Kukukuku now mummify their dead, but they have lost none of their warlike nature and tribal conflicts are still frequent. Cannibalism has almost entirely died out, though there are still isolated cases of human flesh being eaten in the most remote regions. We must understand that for these warriors just 15 or 20 years ago, cannibalism was perfectly normal. The land where the Kukukuku live is very rugged and covered in jungle, but even here we find representatives of the most radical religious sects from the West. They are everywhere. In Papua there are over 100 different churches. They started coming in the 50s when in Papua New Guinea there were still around 2 million natives living practically in the Stone Age. This was a valuable prize. Missionaries from the different sects came with their Western beliefs and gods, frantically vying with each other to convert the heathens. Tragically, this has led to the loss of ancient customs and ways of life. Again in the Highlands, we have come to witness a compensation meeting. After the requisite greetings, the two tribes sit down facing each other along the mountain terrace. The tribe on the left have to pay compensation to the other tribe. One of them killed a man from the other tribe and they're now going to discuss how much they will have to pay his family. Each group has its own interpreter, who understands either the language of the other tribe or Pidgin, the lingua franca, which is spoken by more and more people. It is the only way to communicate in a country with over 800 different languages. Every day across the whole country, there are to decide compensation. People go to them with axes, machetes and bows. If an agreement is not reached, it might turn into a bloody fight. There are more and more deaths because in tribal battles firearms are increasingly replacing the traditional bows and spears. They may talk for hours or even days discussing the quantity of kinas or the number of pigs the injured family should receive. But in the end, they almost always come to an agreement. An important institution for these peoples is the tanimet, or courting ceremony. This man dressed in huge feathers is the matchmaker, and he's in charge of the courting ceremonies. A tanimet can last for days or weeks. The men invite the women from a different village. The Highlander culture is exogamous. It is forbidden to marry relatives, and so they have to look for wives outside their own village. Men can have as many wives as they can support, but the women can only have one husband. The songs speak of love affairs and list the obligations of the future spouses. Following the indications of the matchmaker and under the watchful eye of the older women who have brought the girls here, the men constantly move around courting all the women. They cross their legs and take hold of each other's hands. They are all wearing their finest traditional clothes and wear provocative makeup. Both the man and the woman must agree before the matchmaker will give his consent. The wedding is very simple. The two families get together and the groom pays the dowry to the parents of the bride. From 15 to 30 pigs, domestic utensils, and a few kinas, which the bride will attach to her dress. Once the dowry has been handed over, the bride and groom and the bride's family go to her village.